Like Gill, Qrash.
Hello. How are you today now? After all this crazy stuff going on.
Right. You know what? It's crazy, and yet every piece of it I see and understand it. It is right by the books. Who was telling you about Epstein and Maxwell for years? I did a podcast on it in 2020 in June and
Yeah.
telling you that Maxwell was in New Hampshire. It was their money laundering network. It was part of how they leveraged. It's why O'Keefe and the Mossad came to New Hampshire. Everything you're seeing now is by the book. You're confused. As a whole, probably more now than ever. And I briefly talked to Qrash, and I think she might agree
Yeah,
that
definitely.
it's because you'll hear later on this recording, which is extraordinarily important. It was a year in the coming that I didn't even know exist. But it goes on to say 98% CIA. That is the manipulation in these podcasters and these influencers. It's the white hats, it's the black hats, it's the Republicans. It's one. And you're the enemy. That's it. That's the CIA. That's the manipulation. That's Flynn. But if you want to understand this, you've got to understand who runs it. And you have to understand who the target is if you're going to win a war. And the target is the Department of Justice. That is the head of this deep state. They made this deep state imaginary. Who was it? Was it Obama? Was it this? Bullshit. It's a Department of Justice that controls our courts. You control justice, you control law. Who are the congressmen and the senators that are afraid to be blackmailed? By the Department of Justice, who would prosecute them. The Mossad will videotape them. That's what O'Keefe did too, the videotaping. When O'Flynn turns around and takes control of this laundering network, with Sununu, you can target people with their money, which is what drove Sununu and Flynn together to Arizona in June.
A year ago.
A year ago for the presidency, the brokered convention. Our boys are together again. Sununu and Haley would have been the beneficiary. It was Flynn with the DOJ. And what you have to understand is this: Flynn is an operative. He carries orders, from like Jack Smith of the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice was killing a movement with patriotism in New Hampshire, whether you believe Donald Trump or not. And I believe he is under the control of the Department of Justice now. That's Patel, that's Bongino, that's blocking the Epstein files, that's dropping bombs in Iran, because that brokered convention was also in favor with the military-industrial complex. That's Haley. That was the intent of coming here and doing this. But that Arizona meeting with those recordings is evidence that there was real brokered convention that would lead to the Department of Justice, that would lead to the insurrection plan of the Department of Justice. Now you're targeting your enemy. Now you're hitting them where they live. They still work for you. But that is the money laundering network of the deep state. Who's on the 50 million? Who is Hillary Clinton's campaign manager? Married to Senator Shaheen, who suddenly retired. Bill Shaheen. He was the United States Attorney. That's the Department of Justice. You see, that is who your enemy is. That is the confusion of what they control and who they control and how they leverage. They leverage the President of the United States. But you can't say you don't have a path. So when you hear this tape, this is right after the Arizona meeting, confronting Flynn's people, having Shelby Busch in a form of a confession. And I won't repeat it all because you're going to hear it again. But you're going to hear the steps in this and what was said. And my recall from right after the meeting before Matthew threatened me that later that night and put that note on my door, and multiple threats thereafter. It was right after, not long after that, that Trump had an assassination attempt. So this went south, and it went south because of that, what I learned in that Arizona meeting. And this recall of this, I'm telling Staci Burk. She doesn't tell me she's recording, so I want you to have that frame of mind. She's still not coming forwards, and she didn't for a year. Now, I want you to also hold this in your frame of mind. In these last couple weeks, like giving us this evidence here, but she posted that she was directly with Flynn and Powell and Carissa Ketchel. At the time they were taking my evidence, she was directly with that team. In fact, they held her for months. The same team that was taking my evidence. She knew who I was. She was present with my evidence. What did we find out later? Again, a week or so later, that evidence was part of the evidence that turned around and said my evidence went to Trump. And Trump was going to leverage politicians, congressmen, and senators using my evidence, proof of corruption is the money laundering. So we made that connection with that very witness, and she didn't expose herself to who she was. In fact, you know what they did? They had this guy, McMahon, attacking me, attacking the meeting when he was a shill for her. See, when I say that they were going to get paid and they're blackmail, you'll hear that she turned down 400,000, which means she wants millions.
She wants
I
more.
am part of that blackmail, right? So, but understand what we know now that I didn't know then. That turned around, that she was a witness to that evidence coming in. She knew exactly who I was. There was no accident now. There's no accidents that we're here now together. So in other words, she was an inside witness to the Flynn team, which is why she had to be surrounded. Before the election, they couldn't have that get out before election, just as on December 14th, they couldn't have my evidence reach Trump. The same evidence that Burke is suggesting was given to Trump to use to stay in office, as was my intent. So when you listen to this, know that. But one, there was going to be a brokered convention, and Flynn was behind it. How does Trump support the guy that was taking him out? You're going to hear a witness, too, of that insurrection, with that evidence of the insurrection, as I'm a witness to that insurrection in the plan. You see what I'm saying? So in other words, again, it was Flynn. And even all these podcasters and Michelle Moore, the godly granny who was sending me to my death in Arizona, because that was the plan. Why were they being in Arizona? Why would they be sending me to Arizona? Because it was the same Flynn network doing the brokered convention that was going to snuff my ass in Arizona. And how did the cops come? After 4 911 calls and 5 hours later. You don't think they were ready to cover this up? And if you listen to Staci Burk and her experience with the Arizona cops, when she's saying they're potentially dead, they're dangerous and they could kill people, I believe it. But it's why you have to hear it. So again, the enemy is the Department of Justice. This is the path. It's the path that proves the Department of Justice. It puts Lullen in with the Pandora's box, giving it to AG Barr, corrupting the Senate and the Congress. And the same Congress that's got $935 billion, they're still not telling you where it went. Okay. So I guess that's as best as we're going to set this up. But I will interrupt along the way, and I apologize, but you have to understand the importance. And you have to understand what she gave out recently versus what she had then and wasn't telling us. Okay.
Okay, so what we're doing is I'm going to be playing the video. or the audio. It's audio. So
Audio.
it's the only way we can do it. And Mike's going to stop me in between and explain some things, but I'm hoping this is recording right, Mike. So because this is something we didn't do before, so we'll see. But I'm gonna play it, and you tell me when to stop.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's do it.
This is the beginning.
Hey, Stacy, this is Mike Gill.
Hey, yeah, I thank you for calling. Yeah, I'm trying to do this amended complaint because I think they've issued motions to dismiss, and the judge has given me 3 shots, and I think I finally have an attorney who is, if he could have moved his law firm schedule around, he would have taken the case, but the judge is kind of thinking, well, because I don't have a lawyer representing me, and because they're basically just going, she's crazy. What do you mean? We didn't kidnap her and hold her hostage, like blah, blah, blah. And then the judge at first was kind of like, she thought the whole story was outlandish, right? And then by the 3rd complaint, they said, okay, so even if Flynn did send a security team to her house, and the judge is like, wait, what?
I think I heard this. Is this recorded?
What?
Did you have a recording of Joe Flynn or something about threatening you, coming to the house, taking your phone?
Yeah, the security team that was already holding me hostage took my phone and took it to the Willard in D.C.
I didn't know who you were, but I know that story. I seen a clip. I was on Michelle Moore's show, and I seen a clip with Joe, because that guy Joe Flynn was trying to reach and threaten Michelle. I mean, this guy's a bully, but
yeah, he is.
But I didn't put it together. Here's what, I don't know if you know who I am.
I mean, I've heard of you a little bit. I was looking at some stuff online, and I saw you kind of going up against Flynn, which I appreciate. But
let me tell you that I'll go real quick through the story. What I did.
Hold on, Qrash. She was part of the team collecting my evidence in December of 2020. She knew exactly who I was. And when she turned around, and the DMs thereafter was suggesting that was my evidence exactly that they were giving to Trump around December of 2020. My evidence. So in other words, that was a lie. All
That's
right.
what
So
I was going to say. You have DMs. We've shown those for people that might not have seen them.
yes.
You have a DM that shows that she was working directly with that team at that time.
Right. And recognize my evidence then.
Yeah.
In the DMs. So what I'm saying, and did you see for a moment when she turned around and I said recorded?
Yeah. I heard the recording you said.
Right. And she swallowed her tongue. She thought I asked her if she was recording me. That was that little pause and choke.
She said,
okay.
She said, what? Like, how did it was very, I picked up on that too.
You did. You absolutely did. And it reminded me when it happened. Okay. All right. Hit it.
One of the largest brokerage firm in the United States and the largest racing stable in the world. But I uncovered the money laundering network in New Hampshire that turned out to be that of the deep state. Now, when they put $935 billion in it through the Pandora's Papers, my evidence became Pandora's box. Now, the laundering network. Now, I met, Flynn reached out to me, you ready? By text, which would be evidence. On December 18, 2020, from the Oval Office, standing in front of Trump, along with Sidney Powell. They reached out to me to intercept my evidence, the settlement agreements, all this, and it's all in text messages. I have emails, text messages, phone calls with Flynn and his whole team. They were intercepting my evidence so Trump couldn't use it to leverage their money. That's why Trump says Pandora's box. That's me.
Wait,
with that evidence.
So they were. How did they know about you to reach out to you from Trump's office?
The FBI. The FBI, if you look at what I'm story is, I go to the FBI, I confront them with the evidence. I turn around, go to the DEA, got the largest fentanyl seizure in history, 80,000 pounds. The cartel that's in New Hampshire is the Sinaloa cartel with Aganos, the same as you have here. Flynn wanted me to work for them. Flynn wanted me on the team. I'd be on the Great Awakening. They would use the money laundering network to leverage. That's what they're doing. That guy, Chris Sununu, he's blocking any investigations. What you seeing these guys do, what Shelby's going to do?
Hold on now, Qrash. I want you to remember now, we mentioned Sununu. Sununu would have been the benefactor of the broker convention with Haley. Haley was the only one hanging around with Sununu. That was the plan. That was the Busch and so forth. Now, remember this too. When I gave her those dates, December 18th, 2020, right? That is the time she says and claims to be working with them directly and held hostage. So in other words, she has put herself in with them exactly at that time, whether she liked it or not, which is, I guess, how you get to be held hostage. But is still the case. So when she's hearing my evidence, I'm giving it to the people she's with and working with.
Right.
The Flynn team that she referenced later. So again, she's playing stupid. Okay, I want you to understand this because this is important, because this is an important witness. But that is a brokered convention. That is the plot. That was an insurrection. It goes back to the CIA and what they're doing to us. And it goes back to Trump and asked the question, how do you let this guy go if you're not protecting the DOJ who might have gave you a pass? Would be my question. Okay, hit it.
All right. Before I hit it, I want to also add in the beginning of that clip, she mentioned, how did they know to reach out to you? And you said the FBI. And
Yes.
to clarify that, you're not working with the FBI. You went to the FBI to call them out. So go ahead and explain.
But isn't it how funny they spun that? Thank you for bringing that up.
She did spin it, yeah.
Yeah, she spun it by saying, and that pinhead, McMahon, go, oh, Mike Gill said he was working with the FBI. How many videos have you seen me knocking on the FBI, calling them out with evidence and so forth, embarrassing them, bringing it? That's what I said. But that's how they spin it. And that's somebody who worked for Flynn. Doesn't it sound like a podcaster? Doesn't it sound like they all record each other as she's secretly recording me?
Right.
All right.
Okay.
Get it. Thank you for bringing that up, though. I forgot that.
Yeah. It was she wrote a tweet about it. So it reminded me,
Yeah.
They're going to set up Trump at the convention and make it a broker convention. Flynn's running around the country trying to get delegates not to vote so it doesn't get a majority and it all goes to a second vote. That meeting with Shelby Busch, she admitted it. She's afraid because they're going to blame her as the scapegoat. And I asked her directly, and it's all on tape. Liz has the whole recording, even that they brought you up. Now, Liz, all of a sudden now,
Sorry, I wanted to say something on that.
Yeah.
You hear you talking, okay?
Yeah.
Now, if I'm putting myself in a position of if I didn't know what you were going to say.
Yeah.
And if you told me that stuff, Liz admitted this, and I would have been like, what? I would have had to cut you off and say, wait a minute, what are you talking? And then when you said, and they even mentioned her, she still was quiet. I mean, I would have been like, wait, they talked about me? Hold on. It's a natural reaction. That's all. I'm just saying.
She knows she's taping it.
Right.
And she's giving us nothing. So you actually have to know is she's censoring the conversation or tailoring the conversation to how she wants it to sound.
Right. So I'm just pointing that out.
I caught it.
All right.
I give it to you. Really? So they're going to use it as leverage in deals instead of tell the American people really what's going on.
Yeah,
they knew.
Yeah. I wish you would have recorded it. That's too bad.
Well, they would have checked me for recording. Liz had it in her underwear. No shit. Right. So this evidence was Flynn. Now, you know what Flynn's doing? She also said 98% of this Busch did that said that it's CIA. And she heard about that as in a meeting at the Trump International Hotel with these people. They know. What Busch is afraid of is she's going to get caught as the scapegoat. She was all in, and it was all Flynn. And I'm afraid Liz is using this politically as leverage rather than telling the American people.
That's what she does. She uses it to advance herself. Like,
yeah. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, that's what she does. She records, and then she makes it look like when she does that, she then threw me under the bus and made it, because all these people are getting leveraged and blackmailed. And so Liz made sure to point out that I record so that like it looked like I was the one blackmailing and leveraging, and that was all Liz, like setting that up so that I was the scapegoat, and everybody thought it was me, and they all blame me when in fact it's Liz. It's Liz that's been blackmailing all of the legislators and all of that, and that's why they bounced her from the legislature, because she was going in there.
You know what? It feels like that to me. That was the move. And
Hold on. Hold on, Qrash. Remember when I got out of there, I said, what is it with this place? Everybody's recording each other.
Yeah.
It's because they're all corrupt. She's telling me now that Liz is recording and blackmailing everybody, and Busch is recording and blackmailing them. And I'm saying they recorded me to use as blackmail against Flynn if the DOJ comes from them.
And she did it.
And she's recording me to blackmail. I mean, now how can I write this? And she's doing it with such a straight face. That's exactly what she does. She does it for blackmail. But you know how the sneaky bitch did this too? Did you record it?
Yeah.
She knows he's recording. She's even going to get one. They wanted to know, do you have one? And whatever I'm going to say to them, they won't believe.
Right. And you're really going to tell the truth anyway. I mean, because that's something that, I don't know, I would say.
Hey, listen. I know they have to consider all of it.
Right.
So it doesn't matter. So do your job.
Yeah.
All right. Now we go back to Orphan Annie.
And to leverage them with me and my evidence.
Yeah.
And that was the recording. I see it. Well, I told her today. I did text her. She was saying, well, we're going to work on this, Mike. We're going to help this. I go, I'll tell you what. I'm coming with all of this out on Friday's show. So you can come up with the tape, or I'm just simply going to say that you have it. And there's witnesses that you have it. And want me to tell you the other ones have it. And here's the kicker. She's not going to deny it. She needs it. This is insurance.
Yeah, she does. She totally blackmails and uses the tape with, like, and then she's made people think it was me. I'm the one who, like, has no problem putting stuff out there. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't use it for anything, and I'm not advancing, obviously, in anything politically. So, but Liz is, and Liz does, and she does, and totally, she was blackmailing all the legislators, and that's how she ended up getting, like, a lot of, well, ultimately, they got pissed off about it, because, you know, that's why she got booted. They don't want to say that, because, well, then that looks bad, because then people go, well, what evidence did she have that, you know what I mean? They, you know.
She was turning around and like leveraging, saying, listen, I'm going after the cartel. These guys are all owned by the cartel. And I understand those things, but she was looking like she was going for it, presenting it. And then all of a sudden we have this. I see another.
All right, hit it, Qrash. That's an important point, because it was the bait to get me into Arizona, was going after the cartel, was going after the deeds, which is why Ariel all of a sudden popped up the deeds with Arizona politicians. It was something that they already had, but it was the bait to get me into Arizona. Harris was part of that. If they took me out in Arizona, that would be the bump for Harris. That's why Harris was, and that's why she was working with a guy like Matthew, would have sold his soul. if he had one.
Yeah.
I mean, this is who they were. And what were they tied to? Flynn,
Flynn. Yeah.
Elvire. And then it turns out they confessed at the brokered convention. They confessed being part of the insurrection. And that was where Stacy was working with them and know them and what they did. You know why they were blackmailing one another? Because because they're all guilty. How about this? You just listen to me, you'll continue to listen to me, and what the fuck can you blackmail me with? See, there's the difference with the truth. Okay, hit it, Qrash.
ABC's telling people what they want to hear and not doing anything. And I met this guy, John, on the phone with him, a little bit, the lawyer. I ain't too crazy about him either.
Which
Is
John?
it Thayer or
Oh, John
something?
Taylor. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
No.
I'm not crazy about him too. It was like I didn't think he knew what the hell he was talking about.
He doesn't. He's like, he's another shill for, I've looked at his evidence really closely because, I mean, I want to believe that there's, some stuff, but it's not. It's all just garbage. And then when you go look at the police reports, there's like his ex-wife, there's 17 reports of domestic violence, and you can go read like.
And how old? And when I asked him, I go, "How old?" I had a funny feeling about this guy. I go, "How old's your wife?" "Oh, she was much younger." And I'm going, I wonder how much younger. I mean, the guy, I got a bad feeling. But you know what? It's not fair to say completely anything like that on my end. But I'm just saying I was uneasy. Now, this thing with Liz and everything happened. I'm going to come out and tell people what happened. I won't say anything to you, but on your court cases, now I do have evidence, and I can send some stuff over to you about communicating with Flynn and on that, and that he's tied into the J6.
Yeah, I know you put into this. So, like, so you owned the horse racing thing, like, and then he found, you went to the FBI before January 6th about money laundering?
Oh, many years before, right. If you're going to look at something, you can just pull Google up and Google who I am. Go to State of Corruption YouTubes. I found the laundering network in 2013. You see me post multiple $50 million settlements offers with the IRS, is the banking department and the banking commission, Department of Revenue, everything that audits. That's the laundering network. It's our government. That's part of it.
So the government is laundering with the cartel?
How about this? You think the IRS isn't in on this if they can move trillions and they're watching
Qrash.
600?
So what we're talking now is the Pandora's box. When she's telling me, why did Flynn reach out to you and how? He reached out to me because the Department of Justice had taken my evidence. They knew exactly who I was. And if you were doing this insurrection plan with the DOJ, they don't miss. They're saying, what could be a problem if Gill got his evidence to Trump? Was Gill trying to get his evidence to Trump? Yes. Was he just in D.C. trying to do that exactly? Yes. So in other words, that was part of the plan to make sure that Trump never got that evidence of the Pandora's box, the money laundering network that he could have leveraged him with. She's asking, how did you get that Flynn reached out to you? It was from the Department of Justice. Then it's funny. Then later on, she's saying, I'm working with the feds, which is a very dangerous lie when you consider we're opening the door to the Department of Justice here. Because to answer to her question, and she's working with Flynn, why did he reach out for you? Because this is what I had. And what did she question? Are you saying our government is protecting money laundering? I think she knew it. And that's why the evidence that Flynn wanted, he wanted to blackmail with my evidence to Pandora's box. So when she's saying that, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is the Department of Justice. It is our own government. And it's what you're all seeing right now. So she knows from the inside to ask that question. Okay, hit it, Qrash.
Okay. And I know you probably said it, but I'm just pointing it out again. At this point in this conversation, two things. She did not mention at that time she was in direct contact with them, correct?
Right, correct.
And the other thing is, why didn't she accuse you of working for the FBI then? I mean, you know what I mean? Saying,
And it was only like 2 weeks ago when they did, because you
right,
know what? They didn't even want to when they played this, they were trying to find out what negative piece they could spin, and
right.
that was it.
And that
And
was
it
it.
wasn't a negative piece; it was an out lie.
And it's documented how you have been calling out with your, if we go to your YouTube, and there was
For
something,
19 years.
yeah, there was something else with that. I forget now, but yeah, that was, she had called you. She never had said anything about you much on Twitter
Right.
until this whole thing. So okay.
And she knew. Okay, hit it.
Bucks? Of course they ran on it. Well, listen, they're on the settlement and want to pay me. Now, do you know what Flynn wants? Control of that evidence. That's why they reached out to me.
So why would he have been reaching out to you while he's in the so he reached out to you while he was in the Oval Office with Powell?
You got it, and it's all on, and it's posted everywhere, right? And then the second thing from the Oval Office, he's asking me for the settlement. Why? Because my evidence could have saved Trump by leveraging the deep state with their money. Where do you think? Remember Epstein and Maxwell? You know how they arrested Maxwell in New Hampshire?
Yeah.
She was a money launderer. Who, Representative Bill Shaheen, Hillary Clinton's campaign manager, who's on my $50 million settlement? You see, it's all about blackmail and extortion and money laundering. All of what you see, they steal and they rob and they turn around and sell drugs. All has to be hidden and clean. We're looking for the Grand Canyon. How about this? You ever heard of Planet Fitness? It's owned by the Sinaloa cartel. Dick Anagos. I have it all. I have the CEO. In fact, they're talking about it now. But that's how big this is.
Yeah.
Like Flynn, now, here's the thing with Flynn.
Bill owns a lot of U.S. businesses.
I know. Here's the thing with Flynn that's going to happen. Flynn's not running for BP or office. Flynn's going to light a match after they have this broker convention and try to get Haley in there. Then you know what Flynn's going to do? Why do you think him and Ray Flynn and all these guys are over the top about threatening the FBI and the CIA? What do you think happened on J6? The same plan. It was the same Flynn. Guess what? They're going to turn around, get everybody all upset. This is going on with Trump. And then they're all going to start getting arrested. Hey, you were saying assassination. You were saying this. What, do you think the feds are stupid and aren't watching? You think Raycliffe can go on Alex Jones' show and say, hey, you know what? If they assassinate Trump, that's a great idea. Then we'll have Flynn come in. You think they get away with that stuff? It's a setup. Take a look at who and what I've done.
So,
all right, I know that that's coming that way.
I believe you. Like, so is Shelby saying that she knew that that's what they were doing, or like?
Yeah, exactly. And she's afraid that she's going to get caught as the scapegoat. They're going to turn around and say, "Hey, you got Trump beat." And you know what she did? She used me to leverage them back so that she wouldn't. She was supposed to release the
Gone. Qrash. Okay, that's an important point. I'm going off this way. She brought it right back to Shelby Busch. So are you saying Shelby Busch knew? 100% she knew. Shelby Busch was in charge of it. So she nailed that down on Shelby Busch. Brokered convention. Shelby Busch was involved in it. And remember, the only mention of a brokered convention was McMahon. So they weren't telling anybody, but they knew. When I'm telling her what was going on in brokered convention, she knew already. That was what McMahon was printing. So even that was bullshit. But she was nailing her down on this recording by me telling her 100% and she did say 100%, and that she was being set up, and it was by Flynn. So now that's a fact now. And Shelby Busch hasn't disputed this.
No.
Liz Harris hasn't disputed a word of any of this.
No.
No one's saying they don't have one. Now you're hearing the tape that she didn't tell us she had, or didn't let us know. Well, you're hearing it now. And that was moments afterwards. Before Matthew, before the threats, before Michelle, before we knew anything, she knew. But that nails Shelby Busch to the brokered convention, period. Now, if that was Flynn behind this, how can Trump be endorsing Flynn when Flynn was behind taking him out with Sununu? Okay, all right, Qrash.
All right. I wanted to point out before we go any further, like in the very beginning, if you go back and listen, you and I, Mike, were trying to figure out who initiated this call. Now you
Yes.
have to go into other evidence that you don't want to open up. So like as far as your other phone. So
Yeah.
I just by listening to it, and the viewers can
Yeah.
figure their own thing. It sounds like she reached out to you at some point to ask about this amended complaint. Because in the beginning, she says, "Thank you for calling. You know, I was trying to do this amended complaint
Right.
tonight. I want to get it done." And then after that point, that was like the first minute. And then after that point, she probes you the whole rest of this conversation, which is a 45-minute conversation. It's
Right.
not like at the very almost near the end, she does talk about it for a minute, but to me, it's like this.
It wasn't, she was opening a door to something else.
So
That's correct. Right.
You know, she has it listed. You'll see when we post things, she has it listed. Mike Gill call to Staci Burk claiming he can help. Well, she didn't really make that clear. Help what? I think it was worded that way for.
Well, how about this? She recorded it and said she put it in a safe place, a container. It's going to take her a couple of weeks to get, which turned out to be horseshit too. But this is level. Here's the thing. You ready? This is what I understand and she understands. I'm the only one you leverage Flynn with now in the Department of Justice. I am the only leverage against the Department of Justice.
And her.
Well, she's a witness.
Yeah,
Right. She's going to leverage them with me and my evidence.
Right.
Which is why she turned down 400,000 already. So they're doing it for payoffs. I'm not doing it for that. Going for American people, well, she's getting paid.
Right.
That isn't for
she once paid.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what we're not letting us know.
Okay.
All right, hit it.
Last Saturday and Liz is sitting on that tape and don't want the American people to hear it.
Well, what did Shelby say?
About the 98%. When I asked her, I said this very directly. You know that Flynn and these people are working for a brokered election. She goes, yes. I said, you're only talking to me because you're afraid. Yes. You're afraid that you're the scapegoat, 100%. So you're looking for me to tell you which way to go out. She goes, yes. I said, how's two ways? The first door, you warn the American people what they're doing, and you prevent it, and you save President Trump. Or what happens is that it goes on still, but you warned everybody ahead of time. You told them that it wasn't you and the plan. So either door you win.
Right.
And she's picking zero door. That means she took it and used it as leverage, as an insurance policy, that they wouldn't use her as a scapegoat. Shelby Busch looked out for herself, and she brought this monster that looked like a Hell's Angel guy, motorcycle guy, armed, and he, with the threatening bullshit kind of thing. And then when I confronted him about working with Flynn, he wouldn't say anything. So, and do we not know that they move drugs with motorcycle groups? I can tell you that's why we want that tape.
So
if we don't.
Shelby was saying, okay, how does she know they're brokering the convention? Did she say?
We told her. They're working for her to do that. That's why she's afraid. Think about this. If you're going to turn around and have Nikki Haley be the Republican candidate, how do you do that? How do you do that? Do you know the rules of a broker convention? All right. If Trump doesn't get the majority on the first vote, it's open to anybody. They're blocking votes. That's what Flynn is doing. They're sinking Trump. So Trump doesn't get it. That's what Bush is doing. They don't get the delegates on the first majority. They turn around and they nominate Nikki Haley. That's the plan. Military-industrial complex. Right.
And Shelby, like they told her that. Who told her that that's what they're doing?
Well, I asked her if she knows what they're doing, and she's saying yes.
But she didn't tell you who told her.
Who? Well, she was talking nothing but Flynn. So it had to be coming from Flynn and Vandersteel and Patrick Byrne. And Patrick Byrne's such a nice guy. I go, such a nice guy. He goes, yeah, look at how he was going after Clinton with the FBI. I go, is there something the matter with you? The FBI's been protecting Clinton. Not going after him. Byrne just gave us the cover bullshit.
Right.
Hold on, Qrash. What Bush was doing was giving herself a cover of being fooled. Patrick Burns was such a nice guy. He gave her $700,000, which made him even look nicer. And that she believed Patrick Burns because Patrick Burns was working with the FBI to set up Hillary Clinton. You see? So in other words, it was bullshit. It was her trying to sell me that she was fooled by these people.
Right.
Remember when Lindell just got found guilty again, had to pay? What was his basis of thinking of fixed election? He goes, General Flynn, the former national security advisor. This same here.
Yeah.
So,
I believed what he said.
right.
Yeah, I believed it. So it's, yeah.
So she's still being careful, and she's nailing down this. And a kid from Flynn, but she knew exactly what she was doing, and she knew exactly what was going on. Okay.
She as in Stacy or she as in Shelby? When you're making that comment.
Both.
Okay.
Both knew what they were doing. Hey, listen, I'm the only asshole went in there without a recording and turned around and knew about the brokered convention had to be. The rest of them confessed, I mean, right down to the Lindbergh kidnapping before I had to ask a question.
and it's funny how this recording that Staci Burk has here that we're playing, I mean, it was put in storage. It just has blown my mind that people don't say, well, is it that important? What's, it's important. That's what I'm saying. Like, she knew that.
Well, it was so important that she secretly recorded me.
Well, yes, she does that probably with everybody, but this one never made it out there. She said in this recording, I don't have a problem with putting things out, but there's things I'm sure she doesn't put out.
I can tell you I know what's happening because I can feel the board. The situation, what we have here, along with Pandora Box and where we're going to go, even the next podcast, puts Trump in a bad position. Flynn can't go into his media empire and how they're separating and dividing these media empires. This is a problem. Staci Burk lost Trump as a leverage point when Trump kissed Flynn on the ass a couple days ago. And how much of that is intentionally to do with this might be a lot more than you realize, because that's how really big this is. I mean, your own government's creating an insurrection and throwing your ass in jail.
Right.
And still controlling the shot. Remember military-industrial complex, and we just dropped a couple of bombs in Iran?
Yeah.
Who do you think won this election? At the end of the day, the DOJ.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
I'll play. Okay.
And
If she'd actually gone after Clinton, then she would be in jail. Like, if he, like, you know what I mean? Like, if he did what he said he did, like, they would have had the evidence to go after her. Like,
this is what happened. The IRS knocks on his door, says you owe about $50 billion, and you work for us now. There you go.
right,
That's Mike Lindell too.
right.
That's it. Lindell's company was making money. It was dying. He made more money on the election grift than anybody.
Right,
He was a cash cow. He was part of the J6 team.
right.
Oh, see, this was a plan. The same team is blowing it up again. And the target is the same people. And all these dumbasses on Q listening to this shit and that shit are walking right into the cage again.
Right.
Well, one Friday. Now, here's the thing what you have to understand your situation with Flynn. I would try to hang on as much as possible because Flynn's going to light a match and he's going to want to be in a lawsuit with you with a deposition.
I know. That's why I need to do that's why I need to do the what you call it, the amended complaint tonight. So try to save the case because
get it done. Because you know what? I don't know what you may be sitting on something you don't have an understanding of right now. Because this could get awful interesting. And believe me, the guy who put all this together will not want to stand in a deposition. And in a civil deposition, he can't claim about self-incrimination, the fifth.
I mean, it can, but it's used against you. So, yeah.
Right. So I'm telling you, I would hold that together. And it's not going to take long. We're talking about the convention. What are we talking, a month?
Yeah, I'm trying to pull it together, but like, so they were in the Oval Office on
December 18th, 2020. And I'm going to want you to Google something. Jack Smith, a month ago or so, said that this day has to be further examined. And then 2 days later, Flynn gets 8 subpoenas.
Right. Well, some of those were me. Like I sent Flynn some subpoenas because you know how he said they were about a lawsuit in Arizona. That's me.
Yeah,
that's me.
No, there was others, but I'm sure. But those subpoenas.
Hold on, Qrash. Flynn went on to say they were federal subpoenas. Do you remember how she wanted to wrap around those subpoenas that she sent?
Yeah.
She turned around and says, well, 8 or maybe some of those were mine. Listen, you know how many subpoenas you sent. And if some of those 8 were hers, it wasn't 8 as a total. And that was the feds that Fed came out. And listen, her civil complaint didn't make public news. Google it, front headlines. All right? That was Flynn. And Flynn announced it himself on that PPN show.
Yeah.
But she's, again, wrapping it to her case. And, okay, go ahead. But I just wanted you to know that.
Okay.
Remember who didn't go to jail and how many people that did? Because you don't know the Flynn players went to jail.
Yeah. Well, some of them are the AG's office, the Arizona AG's office, because I've talked to them and told them what the stuff with Flynn. Like, they know all the stuff with me with Flynn. But, so they do know.
You can't trust the AG's office either because, what is it, a bunch of lawyers?
I know. I agree with you. I think something's really weird because they're not really, like, they've taken my information. They're being very close-chested about what's going on.
Well, you know what they did? They got your information, which is what they wanted. Right. And usually how they get your information and direction by coming to you like somebody's going to help.
Right.
How about this? Did anybody actually help you?
No.
There you go.
I know. Well, all of these guys came to me like they were going to help. Like, everybody did.
But, finding out what you have.
Yeah, totally. So what, how did Flynn find out you, so what was he, so on the 18th, he was in Trump's office and he, like, let me get this clear, like, what was he trying to do? Like.
All right. I've got to leave in a minute, but I'll tell you this. What happened, what I uncovered was a laundering network. What you're going to find out that they used a singular state to hide the senators, the congressmen. That's what I found. Now, what happened was the feds knew I had a Department of Justice habits. It's all in writing. And if you Google me, you'll see all that. Uh-huh. Now, what happened was when they started the insurrection on that December 18th, they wanted to intercept my evidence So Biden couldn't be leveraged. Clinton couldn't be leveraged. Shaheen couldn't be leveraged. So that Trump could use that. So from there, when they started the insurrection plan, part of the plan was to intercept my evidence that Trump wouldn't get it. And I was sending it all in to Flynn, and you see it every day, text message, emails.
Hold on, Qrash.
That is that.
When you're listening to this explanation that I'm giving, realize I'm talking to somebody that was working on the team. The one that she's saying was being held by those same people. So as she's asking questions, you're giving them this, you're asking for this. She's working with them. So she's pretending not to know anything. Remember, she knew who I was and what they were taking from me and how they were using it, even in her DMs that she suggested that. But she's asking questions knowing that she's working for the team I'm sending the evidence to. So just remember that. Okay, hit it, Qrash.
You see, hard, absolute evidence, none that they dispute. So, what happened after day 6 knows it was a trap. And then I've been outing Flynn since to find Flynn inside the podcast world, planning the same operation, using the same people.
So Flynn reaches out to you claiming that he's with Trump and wants to save Trump.
Yes. That he's going to use my evidence against the deep state, against Biden, and save Trump. What he was doing was intercepting my evidence so Trump couldn't use it, because I was in Washington before that trying to get it to Trump.
Oh.
And they knew it. So the feds turn around and go, hey, you got to intercept his guy's evidence before you put the plan in place or it gets all screwed up.
And why would it, because you would have continued trying to get it to Trump?
Right.
But how come you don't just get it to Trump?
How about this? Did you give your evidence to Trump?
I mean, supposedly through Flynn.
Right? Supposedly through Flynn to me. I thought I was giving it to Trump, as you did.
All right.
That's what he did. He intercepted the evidence on the disguise to giving it to Trump when he was never going to do it.
Is there a way to now to get it to Trump separately from Flynn?
What do you think Trump's turning around and saying Pandora's box all the time? Everybody rattles his cage. That is me.
So
that is my evidence.
So Trump he has your evidence now.
You know what? I can't say too much on this phone, but I can tell you that is what he's leveraging with. Doesn't change the courts. Doesn't change the ruling maybe of the Supreme Court with the immunity. You see, it's maybe keeping him out of jail, but it's part of it. And I'm saying, give it to the people. Let them know their congressmen, their senators, they're corrupt and taking money and who's paying them. I mean, what did they say? 98%? What did Assange say? Of
98% of
Washington's corrupt?
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. I don't doubt that at all. I used to say that too. Yeah.
It's the dark money that pays these people, the cartels and so forth. The government sells.
Hold on, Qrash. Now remember, I'm asking her, I'm saying, tell the American people this. We get it. That's why no one's telling you the truth and why everybody's confused. And even when I'm asking her, she's going, yeah, I think about this. She's not showing you the evidence she's leveraging them with. She's not showing you the evidence that you gave the J6 committee that's called them black ops and who they were. She's not, when I'm turning around, she's suing them. She's not giving it to you.
Yeah, I didn't.
And that's our problem. No one's telling you the truth, and everybody's leverage. And when you control, Department of Justice controls your freedom. That's the power of life and death. Listen, I was a famous man, right? Rich, and now I'm homeless. Reminding you to send a couple bucks to, this has been a tough next week. I'm not asking for a car. I'm asking for food and a roof. I mean, Jesus.
Yeah.
All right. That's it. But all right, hit it, Qrash.
I turned a truck when I started this too. I mean, I was the world champion of thoroughbred racing. You know, a sport of kings around the world. I got that from being a seminarian, being a priest. All right. So, in other words, it's all reading what I'm seeing and following. All right. So my suggestion is try to keep that in place because your circumstances could change immediately. Watch on Friday. Now, this is the only thing I'll leave you with is just a thought. Now that I know from the contact of that phone and all. Now, if you're going to be in court and with a judge, you want them to know that people are seeing what's going on. And if you know who I am, I'm the guy that goes in and put cameras in the courtroom. My suggestion is, just a thought out there, you may want to tell your story to someone like Michelle Moore.
Yeah.
Because then you get to see, at least they hear your side. A judge might turn around and say, you know, now that people are watching, they're going to be a little slower to dismiss it. I'm not telling you to do it. I'm telling you to think about it. Because if you're in a lawsuit with this guy, you don't be silent. You want to be public. You see, like a guy like Joe Flynn, you make sure that people are watching your situation. That's my advice.
Yeah.
It's advice I've taken.
So is Trump, like, if they do the brokered convention, though, then he's out.
Right.
So.
And Shelby Busch had something to do with it.
Well, Shelby Busch was like, she's the one who basically, so like my story, Shelby was the one who tried to set up so that Flynn could raid the election center based on lies in Arizona. She tried to set me up. So I was a huge, huge Trump supporter, right? Like, and very effective, I think, at winning over a lot of people. I mean, I won over a lot of Democrat friends in favor of Trump. And next thing I know, Shelby, but so this guy's approaching me claiming that he's a government official. And well, it's a long story, but I ended up recording him because something felt off, right? And he's in my house and he's telling this story that he's a government official, that the summer girl is there and she's, you know, an associate of his. And he claims that he's a government official and he's part of a counterfeit ballot. He was doing security for election fraud for a counterfeit ballot operation. And he works for this Mayhem Security, which is associated with Flynn. Like and they do intel gathering for members of Congress. And they also do political black ops. And they ran security for the busloads of migrants that they took to Kamala Harris's doorstep. But they also do security for congressmen like Mark Kelly and stuff like that. So they play ball on both sides of the aisle. So they're this security team company that's like multinational and, you know, all of that. They're in Arizona. They're called Mayhem Security Solutions. They're affiliated with Flynn. Well, the guy that comes to my house and poses as a government official and claims that he's part of this running counterfeit ballots worked for that company, Mayhem. So essentially, like, Flynn's guy comes to me and does this false confession, right? Like, makes up this fabricated story. Well, I wasn't supposed to secretly record it. I was supposed to just hear the story. And then the next day, Shelby Busch is in D.C. with Giuliani and Sidney Powell. Just coincidentally, she's in D.C. with Sidney Powell and Giuliani. And she says, we need you to do an affidavit right away because we need to get a FISA warrant. We need you to do an affidavit repeating what he told you. And we need to use it to get a FISA warrant because it implicates foreign interference and the executive order. And we need to do that to get a FISA warrant to seize the election center before they certify. And so I checked it out.
Hold on, Qrash.
Wait a minute.
Do we understand what we're hearing yet? See, this is all about blackmail and extortion, right? They're saying the same Shelby Busch who was running the brokered convention was working with Flynn on the insurrection plan that they were going to spin on Staci Burk by having her sign that Pfizer thing. Blame her. Remember,
Right.
the whole thing was fraudulent. Remember Tina Peters happening at the same time? Right. So in other words, she turned on them for the same reason Shelby Busch turned on them in the brokered convention, because they were rolling on her. So Staci Burk is telling her, you know how they got me? For not signing the Pfizer warrant, which had to do with the insurrection. And let's not forget, this was Shelby Busch's conversation with Harris and myself at that Arizona meeting. So she's giving it from her perspective of what I heard.
Right.
Okay. This is kind of important stuff. Okay,
Yeah.
hit it. It's funny what she knew when she started talking.
I'm sorry, what? What'd you say that
It's
again?
funny what she knew when she started talking. All I had to do is shut up.
Oh,
Go
yeah.
ahead.
Outside my house and stalking and surveilling and stuff like that. So I'm like, yeah, no thanks. So, but in the process of Shelby pushing me and trying to push me to do it, I disclosed that I secretly recorded the night before what had happened. Well, Shelby then freaks out. So instead of being like, oh, hey, that's awesome, that's even better, you got a recording of the guy, right? Suddenly they flip out, and that wasn't a good thing. It wasn't a good thing because they were trying to set it up to where his partner could say, that wasn't, when they needed to throw me under the bus, his partner could have said, that wasn't what he said. You know what I mean? And it would have been a he said, she said. But by me recording, it proved what happened. Well, so they freak out and they don't know what to do, and they're flipping out and, blah, blah, blah. So then Maricopa County certifies on, a couple days later without them getting the FISA warrant. Well, so, and at the time they said...
Hold on, Qrash. Just another thing where she's saying Shelby blew up, right? Because what it would do was lead back to Flynn. But think about this too. Isn't it right around this time Lynn Wood was recording Flynn? Because Wood was afraid Flynn was going to set him up.
Yeah, it was that same time.
Burke is taping Busch for thinking she's going to flip. And
the
Busch
security
is
guy.
Flipping Harris and the security. First, son of a bitch, huh? Everybody's taping everybody. And you know what? They're all right.
Yeah.
But don't forget, that's why they're taping it. And again, we're in the beginning. We got the same insurrection team that was doing the brokered convention. Oh man! All right, hit it.
And the audit thing. I mean, she's
yes, the audit. I mean, and it was the podcasters that sent me this. Listen, you can't connect the dots like this. And then I get there, you know who they're trying to do it for? Sununu and Haley. Sununu goes, son of a bitch, he ties the Pandora box to my ass, and I'm going to be the vice president of the United States, for a little while. And he's there in Arizona. Are you shitting me?
Right. And the people that can't connect these dots and they're denying it, they're just stupid.
Right. And we have a tape and they have a tape and we all have tapes and no one asking to play the fucking tape.
Yeah.
That should be a clue. All right, Qrash, hit it.
All right.
Tutors on board, and that's where Richer comes in, and Shelby Busch was working with Richer at the time, and they were also working with some higher level DOJ officials. Well, so Maricopa County certifies...
Hold it. I'm sorry. I'm already apologizing. I'm already apologizing, but we cannot miss it. Did you just say she was working with DOJ officials? They
That's what
were working with DOJ officials. What the fuck? Hold the press. We just said the DOJ's plot was the insurrection, that Flynn was the instrument, and they're meeting with DOJ officials at the point of the insurrection fraud, voting fraud. I mean, it commanded a
an interruption.
it did. I hit it.
Okay.
Holy shit.
Townsend, who was working closely with Flynn as well, she had told me, yeah, no, I saw the guy at the election center. I personally witnessed him. She was trying to push me to sign the affidavit for them to get the FISA warrant, which I almost did. So then Maricopa County certifies. Well, then Kelly Townsend tells them, you guys, if she recorded coke, because she knew me really well. Kelly knew me. She said if she recorded coke, she probably recorded you guys pressuring her to sign the affidavit.
Oh, boy.
And
We need friends, huh?
exactly. So they all start freaking out. Well, the next day, I'm at my house, and there's one of the guys that's associated with Shelby comes over, and he's like, you're still in danger, but I'm nearby if you need anything, blah, 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 right? And he's also on the Eli Gold Foundation board with Flynn, this guy, John Shattuck. And he does all this border stuff and claims that he infiltrates the Taliban and the cartel and all this stuff, right?
Right.
So he's somebody you really want to look into, like, because I think there's something really crazy going on down at the border with him and those guys. But so he comes over and tells me I'm in danger, but he's going to be nearby. Well, that afternoon.
That's who you're in danger with, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that afternoon, I get there's an attempted break-in at my house, and I'm there, and I panic and I call 911 and. The police.
You think they were after the recording, huh?
They were. How did you know?
Just like a guess.
I'm such an idiot, though. I didn't catch on to all this. Like, so they, the police show up, and there's a bunch of police show up because I have a protected address, and because of prior domestic violence, so I was already a protected address. So they know to rush over. Yeah. So they sent several police cars. I had all these police at my house. And John Shattuck, because he'd said that earlier in the day, I just automatically sent the security camera footage of the attempted break-in while I was still on the phone with 911, right? Like, because, he had just said, I'll be nearby. So he shows up with Coke's boss, with the guy who had lied and told the fabricated story. He shows up with that guy's boss. And he's like, you're in danger. You need a security team. Wilson's going to get a security team. And he tells the cops, we're working with Sheriff Mark Lamb and the feds. And we, there's a case, there's a big case, and she's a witness and blah, blah, blah. And so the police basically back off because they think, okay, there's a federal, and, it's a higher authority. So in front of the police, they usher in this heavily armed security detail of former law enforcement officers. Some of them knew the police that were there. So they usher them in, and now the police leave. I'm still shaken up and, I'm on oxygen. I've got health issues. Like, the police leave this heavily armed security detail in my house. And so...
Nice job for the cops.
Yeah.
How about this? Did they get the tape?
Yeah, like right away, because they're like, your life's in danger. Obviously, somebody's just trying to break in.
Once they got the tape, did they leave?
No. Then they tried to convince me that it was all true, that their whole effort was all true, and that they were legitimately that they have all this evidence proving that Coke, that even so now. This is Coke's boss. right? He's going,
Right.
he works for me, but he also does contracts with the government directly. He has security clearance and blah, blah, blah. He goes, I'm going to help John take him down, you know, blah, blah, blah. He's saying all this stuff. And so they're convincing me that it's all true. And so then Sidney Powell is going to file a lawsuit, you know, with these facts to go
after. The same with me, with Sidney Howell in the lawsuit. It was all horseshit.
Yeah.
Did she have you sign an affidavit?
Oh, yeah. They were pushing me.
Me too.
Yeah. They used you as a witness in one of their cases?
That's how they snatched their evidence. You didn't make a copy, did you?
I did.
Do you still have a copy?
Yeah, I have a copy of everything.
Why haven't you made that public?
I have. Like a lot of the stuff.
Well, not enough. More people need to know about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what? I mean, I think you should talk to Michelle. All right? Michelle Moore. I can talk to her about you. All right? And if you want.
Hold on, Qrash. Obviously, we were wrong about Michelle Moore.
Yeah. At that point, you were still trusting her.
I was, but it was shortly after. But the recording that she said that they went in the house for, and I said the recordings. This is the one that they were forcing her with the Pfizer.
Pfizer.
Has she made those public?
I don't know. I haven't. I mean, I
don't know if I heard them.
Yeah.
Because listen, if they wanted them that bad, that's what you would make public.
Right. I mean, if they wanted them, if she went public, they wouldn't be.
They broke into her house. Right. They held her hostage. They looked for the evidence. They found the evidence, but they don't know that he's talking to somebody who's recording everything and making copies, even as we're talking. But, and you know what? She used the government again. You see what I'm saying? Feds and some.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. This is the DOJ. This
operation.
Their plan.
Yeah.
Those are just figureheads and pieces that they move. Okay. All right, hit it.
Safety is that everybody knows what you know. So all of a sudden, no one's worried about what you know that hasn't been told yet.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I did. So I put stuff out there, like public. I gave stuff to the January 6th committee. But then they started. They started threatening. Those guys started threatening me, saying that if anything goes public, I was going to get murdered. Like Flynn's guy, who was his security on January 5th and 6th. Well, like, actually, it was his security for that meeting on the 18th and all of that. He called me.
Hold on.
That if anything.
Hold on, Qrash. Did she just say that was security for J6, and then she said December 18th?
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And then she names him. That's coming up next.
That's why when I mentioned December 18th to her, and she really didn't bring that much attention to that date, yet she had that same date here.
Right. That's what I pointed that out too.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Goes public, I would get murdered. And I posted that on Facebook, and then there was an article about it. But this is a guy who was literally glued to Flynn
Isn't it Raycliffe, is it?
No, his name's Mike Kinney. His nickname was Coyote.
Jeff Ketchel, Raycliffe.
Yeah.
Kind of his guys.
Yeah, no, this was his security guy. This was the one that was like, yeah, he's the one that's in all the pictures. These two guys were, well, I had probably about 15 different security team guys from this particular security team, because they'd bring in 3 to 5 at a time, and then a couple 2 or 3 days would rotate with another group, and like this went on for months actually. Like and they ended up stealing my phone and taking it to the Willard with all the recordings. And they were just they were basically trying to manage the narrative and stay out ahead of me. But I kept recording them and then recording them more. And then they were trying to and then
Those recordings might have saved your life, by the way.
Oh, I think they did. And they were
I think they did too.
although I went through living hell because I was too stupid to know that they were constantly trying to get the recordings. So I was recording, but then they were manipulating. And by the way, Shelby Busch and Liz Harris were 100% part of Flynn's team. So
Hold on.
just telling.
Oh, hold on. Couple things. That last statement about them being 100% their team, they were then too.
Yeah.
But it's how she describes she's being held hostage, right? By shifts of 3 to 5 men at a time. Is she telling us she can't leave the house? Is she being held
I think,
against her will?
well, I think if you go back on her Twitter, you might see that I think she was allowed to leave, but I think they went with her. But I could be wrong on that. You'd have to.
But she calls herself a hostage.
Yeah, I don't know.
So she's sending mismatches. I'm a hostage. I couldn't leave. I worked with them directly. Now she's being held in place with the information that could expose the election fraud before the election.
Right.
And then after the J6.
And the
and
broker convention before the election.
Right. I mean, the of this last election.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But think about this. This is a woman with resources. I have a hard time thinking that she's being held hostage 24/7 and she can't call a cop and say, I want these assholes out of my house.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
I don't get it either.
I don't get it either. And all right. So, and even the way she was ending this again, too. All right. Let's listen. But
yeah. Well, previously in the beginning of the tape, she was asking you questions about the 12/18.
Right.
Now she's saying, well, yeah, he was security for the meeting on the 18th, and his name's Mike Kinney. It's like she now all of a sudden knows all this. It's so contradictory.
And knowing that date and knowing my date, that my date would trigger her date.
Right.
She used it in the same conversation.
So it's just contradictory.
She knows more than she's saying.
Right.
She knows from the inside. Right now, they're negotiating. They lost Trump. I'm what left that scares the shit out of Flynn and the Department of Justice, which is why she's here, which is why all of a sudden we're getting bits of information we didn't get then.
Right.
That's why. You know what? They're negotiating. And then there'll be one.
Yeah.
Which is why these are so important, that you understand what you're seeing and hearing. And what's going on out there, it is the Department of Justice. When it doesn't make any sense, it's because you're looking in the wrong direction. It always makes sense. All right, hit it, Qrash.
I'm concerned.
I see that. Busch, she's telling me, oh, well, I see it now and I see it. This is what Liz. And with Shelby, I can see her. She's deep into it. Now, the thing with Liz about going back, I don't know how much of this is political versus getting it all out there. So if she does it, I'm going to say what happened on Friday. I won't mention your name, but I do think, even for your case, for your better well-being, make that public.
It is public, though. Everything I've said is public.
I know, but I'm just saying, put it on a platform where people are hearing. You don't want to disappear
Right.
with this. How about this? I didn't know about it.
Well, that's
Now,
partially
in a
why.
reference-
That's partially why I'm putting it in the court documents too. Because if anything happens to me, it's like in the federal
Yeah, I know,
court.
but the courts are corrupt. The courts aren't going to save you.
No, but it
How about
would
this?
be
The courts say
no, but
Trump-
it's lodged in a place that Flynn can't make it disappear
You don't know that.
from the court
I'm
record.
just saying. Yeah, and you know what? They put a sealing order on it. The same judge. No one gets to look.
Well, it's not,
Happens every day.
that's not the case right now.
No, it's not, but it could. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But that's the only thing I'm saying to you. How about this? I lived that, doing that, which is why I'm alive. When I caught them, I had to put it out there. Because if you had something just like this, you had something that wasn't out there yet, and they were prepared for breaking into your house. They sent the security about that. What did you have that was that dangerous to them?
It was a recording of them trying to get. It was Shelby. It was a.
And what were they afraid of?
Here's my point. This is why I'm saying Shelby's part of that. It was a recording of Shelby with them trying to pressure me to get a FISA warrant. That's what was so dangerous. Is Shelby? They're covering for Shelby, so they didn't put all that.
I hear you.
Man,
Hold on, Qrash. I don't believe we've heard that tape.
What do you mean?
Of that tape she said of Shelby. The thing that's that dangerous is that I have the tape of Shelby.
Right,
She's
right.
telling you she released everything. American
I
people.
don't think that's out there, but it could be in it could be in this whole thing that they sent.
I doubt it. I doubt it. You know what? It's because they wanted it so bad. If they wanted it so bad, why isn't it front and center? Why isn't she playing it? If they want to remember
Well,
now.
if it was public, they wouldn't need to go after her for it.
Exactly.
It's the whole thing is so contradictory. I mean, everything.
Exactly. They wouldn't go after it if she made it public. I'm suggesting to make those things public to help protect your life, because by getting it out, it's not the need to stop from getting it out. She knows exactly what she's doing. She's holding pieces back as leverage, legal leverage.
Right.
That's what that is. Or you know what? Somebody can play that for us. Okay, Qrash.
I just want to point out we only have a few minutes left of this recording for people that are wondering how long is this going to go. But it gets interesting at the very end here. So
okay,
I'm going to play now. You're ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Resources into getting my stuff if Shelby wasn't a big player on their team. You see what I'm saying? Like,
think about what you're saying now with that news with Shelby, and consider now what I'm doing on Friday with Shelby and Liz. You're going to have the world watching right now of what that plan is with that brokered convention, and that you have evidence with Shelby with this Flynn people. If you were ever going to drop the evidence, is there a better timing?
well, I think you go out and you say what you're going to say Friday, right? Drop what you have. And if I continue pushing the court stuff, and then if Shelby doesn't come out with it, right? Then then it exposes her even more, and then that's the good time for me to come out with it. I think it's better for me to come out with it after the broker.
How about this? You know what after is? The broker election convention. Now you ready? If you ever come out with it that you knew before and didn't say it, it'll tear you to pieces. So you know what you do? You don't say anything then. You either say something now or you keep your mouth shut.
Okay. I mean,
because what happens is, then you knew.
But you're going to say it. You're going to say, like, I only know something hearsay by hearsay, and I don't even understand.
What you just told me about them taking your.
Oh, that
and
stuff
that Shelby was behind it. I say that is important news when it comes down to Shelby. Now, I'll be doing Shelby, and you can watch that on Friday. Just, again, my suggestion, afterwards, it don't count.
Well, I've been putting the stuff out about Shelby. I've been putting the stuff out about Shelby like for 4 years now. Like,
right.
I mean,
but you haven't put it out into the end. It's at the end of the plan. It's at the end of the operation. It's the move. It's why I'm in Arizona. You think I want to be here?
No, I've been putting it out since like that's what I'm. So what did Shelby say about me?
That you had evidence, it was in some storage, and it's something about ballots or something. And she's not releasing the information or the evidence, but I understand that her storage locker's coming up due, so maybe we can get it. No, that doesn't mean anything to me. Maybe it does to you. I mean, does storage locker sound
well,
ridiculous?
So in the storage is the shredded ballots, but I think
that's what they want.
They want, yeah, but they're just shredded ballots that are.
They want them. How about this? I didn't know anything about them. Why did they bring it up?
Right.
And the other thing I would tell you about, did they all throw you under the bus?
Yeah.
So listen, if this thing goes south, it'd be like them to throw you under the bus.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. That's why you move and you tell the people. Then they don't believe them. You. And you do it before it happens. Again, the advice that I take myself. But if you're doing it afterward in a lawsuit, they'll stone you. What, you're going to cash in on it? You didn't tell us, and this happened.
Nobody offered me $400,000 for the shredded ballots. They're not. I don't have access to them though. It's Flynn's guy who has them. I have just been paying for the storage unit to not destroy.
Well, I didn't know anything about that. For some reason, they're concerned about it. Shelby is.
She's just using it to manipulate. I think what she's trying to do is, you know how you're afraid, you know how they're afraid that she's afraid that they're going to throw her under the bus. That's why she's looking. She tried to throw me under the bus. Her and Liz already tried it, and it with the whole shredded ballots thing, and it didn't end up blowing up the way they hoped. And so now they
realize, still on their minds.
Well, it's on their minds because they want to still try to throw me under the bus. And
right.
But it's
and
not
that's
working.
Why I'm saying you go public.
I've already gone public, though. That's what I'm saying.
Well, you know what? How about this? You could be public in the woods and a tree fall down and nobody hears it. What happened? So I'm telling you, nobody knows your position.
Everybody knows. A lot of people know.
Oh, you mean the few people in Arizona? The ones that are corrupt?
No, a lot of people know. There was national news about it.
And you're okay then. And don't worry about getting backstabbed.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not worried about it. No, I'm not worried about
that meeting, though. If you can get the tape, I would listen to it if I were you.
Okay.
That's all I'll say.
Yeah, I was just trying to warn you about Shelby and Liz.
Okay.
That they will.
You're right, and I thank you. In your opinion, seems to be correct. So.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. It was nice speaking to you. I'll talk to you.
Too. Okay.
Hmm.
So she had ballots. They're just ballots. They're just shredded ballots. It's just an election. I mean.
And she's paying for a container, and it belongs to Flynn. Listen, she's got a container of evidence that they want. And you know what? Shelby Busch, maybe one of the things that Shelby Busch wants is that tape of herself. Because in other words, if they're
You mean Staci Burk? Wait.
Staci Burk.
Yeah, okay.
Meaning Shelby Busch would want the tape that Staci Burk made of her. That's the one that Burke was working with Flynn that they wanted back. That's the one that you didn't hear. That's the one that she is paying. Listen, she turned down $400,000. I'm telling you, the question you should ask, what are you suing for? How many millions?
How much more? Yeah.
Right. It's the leverage pieces that they don't give to you, which is what's leveraged in court. Just enough that they turn around and get your attention. She is masterfully staring through this, but no one's coming to your rescue.
So just to be clear, she's paying for the storage locker that she doesn't have access to. But Flynn's guys have access to the storage locker, but she's paying for it.
She's paying for the locker for Flynn, the guy she's suing.
Yeah, I mean,
right. It does. You know what? It doesn't make sense, and it doesn't make sense. And when she's not releasing this stuff, what it is they are suing. They knew the play of the broker convention and told nobody. Turned around and used McMahon to besmirch what happened in that Arizona meeting. But the bottom line is simply put: Flynn and the Department of Justice was behind the insurrection and the election fraud that created J6. They manipulated your podcast world. 98% of these people, CIA, including Flynn, that's what he did. The over the rainbow, follow the old brick road, and all these assholes, and why you're confused. And then they manipulated again for the brokered convention, using the same team in Arizona that they used for the audit election fraud. As we had Tina Peters doing 9 years for the same bullshit with the same people, right? So, in other words, by asking to play the tape, Liz Harris, Shelby, Busch, intact, in full, what would it prove? It would prove that everything that I'm telling you here is right.
True.
And it also tells you it's the Department of Justice behind this. They're manipulating your elections. You know what it is? You're not given an honest choice, not if the choice is Trump, and he can be leveraged by the Department of Justice, who drop his case on the day he's elected. I
Yeah.
mean, that's Jack Smith. That's the deal. So, in other words, are we surprised? And when we say the military-industrial complex, who's behind with bombing Iran?
Yeah.
Remember, we weren't supposed to get in wars. And then they were going to open the Epstein files. Now they're telling you they're closed, they're gone, and don't ask.
There ain't any.
Right. No Kennedy, no Epstein, no nothing. I mean, it was all, and think about this. How many coffee cups and T-shirts did Bongino sell by telling us about the Epstein files? I mean, they should give you all your money back.
Yeah.
The
Refund.
same, and look at this. Bondi is the Department of Justice, who was the AG of Florida, who let Epstein go. Hello. And then we've got Patel, Department of Justice, lies about Stu Peters. I mean, in with Flynn. And Bongino, Secret Service, Patel from the Department of Justice. It's one of their own. It's all of their own. It's a Department of Justice. You know what they did? They just changed hats. They made you think, okay, well, you know what? You think Bongino's a good guy. Patel's one of you guys. How about this? All the AGs under Biden, under Obama, never closed the files on Epstein. Biden didn't. Biden DOJ say, hey, it's closed. He committed suicide. There is no list. Trump did it. So, all right. And from here, and I'll make it quick, we're going to turn around and talk to you about that Pandora's box again. The fact that Lowland has it, how it incriminates the DOJ. How was that evidence and why on December 18th? Doesn't that have to be the question? Why call Gill? What did I have? If I
Right.
didn't have this, there's been an army attached to me for 19 years. An army. Think how quiet all these podcasters are. You don't think that's controlled? You think there's something more out there than you're listening to? There's a path to take your government back, to out the DOJ? You think there's more important information anywhere else? You think there's something that isn't more the truth than what we're telling you here? When have this truth not been the truth? Year after year after year. I even hate saying that. So all the things that are happening, am I surprised? No. It's still the DOJ. It's still business as usual, and you're still broke. So this big spending bill, as Trump is in the Bitcoin business and your dollar's getting smashed, and no one's accounting for the debt, that this adds another 3.8 trillion. No one's thinking about how you're going to go bankrupt, but they're maneuvering that way. That's why the Bitcoin. It's
Yep.
also a part of controlling you through your own poverty, through social services. They want to make you a communist country. We're on our way.
They need us dependent. So, yeah, it's looking like it's heading that way.
Before you even get hit with the sanctions, which is a tax on you, and then the loss of jobs from AI and building. The nightmare is still ahead. This is what I did for a living in forecast. This is the worst I could have ever forecasted. And I saw the crash in 2008, 2 years before. I saw 94. I saw it 91. I saw when things crashed. Nothing looks as bad as this looks. It's like all the moons lined together like it was intentional. All right, Qrash, I'll talk to you.
All right. See ya.